This is Drew Craig, and I'm the creator of The Savage Strength of Starstorm, and you're listening to the True North Country Comics podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics podcast, dedicated to promote Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. If you want to drop me a line, you can contact me at john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. In celebration of the comic book creators exhibiting at Fan Expo Canada 2023, on this episode I chat with Drew Craig about his comic book series The Savage Strength of Starstorm from Image Comics. Fan Expo Canada is the largest comics, sci-fi, horror, anime, and gaming event in Canada and the third largest pop culture event in North America. The show has grown from a small comic book convention attracting 1,500 fans into a multifaceted, multi-day citywide event that attracts hundreds of thousands of people from all over the world. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel. And if you want to help the site and the podcast, please consider supporting the effort by chipping in at ko-fi.com/TrueNorthCountryComics. Your patronage is greatly appreciated. Drew is the writer, illustrator, and creator of The Savage Strength of Starstorm. After years of collecting comics and attending conventions with his brother, Drew decided to set about creating his own universe of heroes and villains. From this, Starstorm was born. Drew resides in Montreal with his family and several forest friends, where he attempts to remain warm, write, and draw. The Savage Strength of Starstorm is a story of an orphaned amnesiac high school student, Grant Garrison, who's just attempting to navigate his present and recall his past when a meteor decimates his school. In the rubble, Grant discovers a strange artifact from another galaxy, the weapon known as the Starstorm, and the power that resides within it will determine not only his friend's future, but the fate of the entire universe. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Drew Craig about his comic book series The Savage Strength of Starstorm from Image Comics and more at Fan Expo Canada. So, Drew Craig, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
My pleasure.
Appreciate your time. Before we get started with all the questions, though, I want to ask you, what was the first comic book that you read?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think back. The first comic book that I read that I can remember was probably I don't know if I read it, but the first comic book that I picked up was probably a French comic book, and it was probably a compilation of, first one I can remember was Spider-Man, and it had Spider-Man fighting, I can't remember who the villain was. It was an amalgamation of Spider-Man. I think there was like a Conan the Barbarian story in it, and there was I think it was Spider-Man, but that's a tough one. There's been so many throughout the years.
Mm-hmm.
The first comic that I remember reading, I guess it's that Spider-Man comic was probably in French.
Sure.
And then, I definitely remember reading actually in like grade school, in like grade 1 or even maybe before that in kindergarten, we had the Hulk and Wolverine.
Wow. For kindergarten.
I think it was, maybe it was later than that, but I can't remember what year that came out. I might be wrong, but I remember that being vividly like in the school and looking at that and like wondering about Wolverine and who is this character?
Yeah.
This crazy looking character. And there was that, and there was Superman Shazam when they fought each other. Mm-hmm. There was like an oversized comic book about that. So those are probably the first ones that I remember reading.
Cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Good reading as a youngster, but I'm wondering who or what inspires you to create today?
There's so much that inspires me. It's mostly it's other artists and other storytellers and mostly it's other comic books, other art, but music and pop culture, movies. Yeah, there's so much that inspires me, really. Yeah, but I would say the number one thing would be other artists. Like the most recent thing that I read that was really inspirational, and I wasn't going to read it while I was creating Starstorm because it seemed to be too much in line with what Starstorm was. What I wanted to do with Starstorm was, so I avoided reading it because I was like, I don't want to be influenced by this at all, or like have it like ruin my plans for what I'm doing with Starstorm. But it was Invincible. So I saw the cartoon and I said, it finishes and it finishes at a it's a cliffhanger. So I said, okay, well, I want to see where the story goes, and if I like the comic book, and usually, I'm wondering if I like the comic book better than I like the cartoon. I like the cartoon a lot. So I picked up the first trade and I was reading through it. And at first it didn't grab me right away. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to really enjoy this. But then I think I got like halfway through the trade and I was like, oh, I think I'm going to love this actually. I burned through the whole series like over the last summer, and I love it. So I loved Ryan Otley's artwork on it. That's very inspirational. But my brother's art inspires me. My brother's when he shows me new pages for Kaya, that's super inspirational. Yeah, we're friends with Matteo Scalera. If I look at his artwork and that's like other art inspires me basically.
Okay, that's cool. Sure.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Now, we're talking because you're going to be an exhibitor at Fan Expo Canada in August. And with that in mind, I'm wondering if you can recount any favorite memories from that particular convention or maybe some other recent conventions.
Yeah, conventions. I've been going to conventions since I was into comic books as a little kid. We used to go to little small shows. I used to try to track down. I was really into Long Shot at one point with the Long Shot miniseries. So me and Wes would go to little shows and I try to track down all those comics. And every time I've gone to a convention, it's always been just a great experience. It's just always like being around, people who are into comic books and like-minded people. And I just looking around at all these inspiring comic books and this inspiring art. It's always been good memories for me. So we did the first Fan Expo. I don't know. It's been years. Over 15 years ago, I'm sure. Fun thing is meeting new people and meeting new friends and people who are into this stuff too, and like really clicking with them. We've met quite a few friends now over the years, and just hanging out with them and seeing what they're doing and what their stories and what they're, like what's inspiring them and just being like clued into new things, new stories, new art. But the biggest takeaway is the friendships that I've developed over the years with different artists and writers and different people in the industry. It's always a good time. It's always fun to get together and see what everybody's doing and have a few laughs together. And it's always fun. But I'm trying to think of one specific scenario, but there's been numerous scenarios that it's hard to dwindle it down to one. But I remember being one time we were at a convention and we used to go to the local bar after the convention, which was I think it's the Renaissance Bar. It's at Fan Expo. It's okay. It overlooks on the field where the Blue Jays play, and just hanging out in there, I met Tony Todd.
Oh wow!
Who was Candyman for people who don't know, and he's been in multiple things. He was in Star Trek. He plays Worf's brother in Star Trek, and he was super nice guy. So I met him there. Met Joe Montana there of all people. we were in there one time, and Luke Perry and Jason Priestley were in there. So we were in like a making of 90210, the later years episode or something. So it's just always been a fun experience. Yeah. And I always enjoy it. So
good to hear. No, because you'll be an exhibitor at Fan Expo Canada, I'm wondering what book or books will you be exhibiting at your table?
Well, I'll be exhibiting The Savage Strength of Starstorm. I'll have the first three. Actually, I think the fourth one will be out by then, actually. So I'll have probably 1, 2, 3, and 4 ready to go. Yeah, so I'll probably get some prints together. I have a couple prints if people are into the character, into the story. I know it's pretty new and people don't really know about it, but yeah, I'll be bringing some prints in the first 4 issues, and that's basically all I'll be exhibiting right now. Yeah, I'm trying to get maybe a toy made eventually, so maybe next year I'll have a toy there with me, some hats maybe and some T-shirts, but right now it's just the comic books and maybe a couple prints, but.
Right. Well, for those not familiar with The Savage Strength of Starstorm, can you sort of define the story for someone? What would it be like?
Sure. It's basically, it starts out, it's my love letter to comic books and all the stuff, pop culture and all the comic books and stories that I grew up with in the 80s and 90s. So it's really influenced by like Crisis on Infinite Earths and Teen Titans of the 80s that George Perez and Marv Wolfman worked on, and like Alpha Flight that John Byrne did, and the X-Men of the 80s and 90s, all the Chris Claremont stuff. Yeah, so it's somewhat of an homage to that, and it starts out as just somewhat of a generic kid in high school who gets a weapon and it attaches itself to him and it gives him this super powered suit. But there's a reason behind why the main character's name is Grant Garrison, and there's a reason why he gets this weapon. And he has amnesia, he doesn't recall where he's from, and there's a reason that these things take place. There's a reason he has amnesia, and he's trying to recall what's going on, why he has these powers, what's happening. And it's sort of like slowly like peeling that onion, unlayering that onion and letting people know bit by bit what's happening, and like I'm developing a whole world, a whole universe of characters, villains and heroes and bounty hunters, and everybody's after this weapon. So and basic premise is, why are they after this weapon? What's this weapon about? What's the reason for this weapon? So so that's basically the premise of the story, and it's like it's going to span different dimensions, and there's a multiverse, and there's all types of different characters that I've created. I've been working on it for quite some time, so it's vast. It'll expand, So yeah,
that's cool. Now, I want to switch gears a wee bit and ask you about the tools used to create your art. Maybe you can walk me through your workflow.
Yeah, well, basically what I do is I get up in the morning when I can, and I go for a walk, and then I think about story ideas on my walk, and then I come home and I write them down, and then I try to get to the drawing table and I start just doodling little images of ideas, and I just use like little sheets of computer paper, and I just start like doodling away, and then if something looks good, then I start like mapping out like thumbnails and then mapping out pages that way. Yeah, and then basically what I'll do is, I'm kind of an old school guy, so I blow up my thumbnails and I trace them onto an 11x17 canvas, Canson paper. So and then I draw that out, and then once I draw that out, then I go to inks and I use Pigma pens basically, and some Faber-Castell pens, and I just pencil and ink it, and then I go into Photoshop. I scan it into Photoshop and I try to clean it up a little bit because I'm a little bit messy. And then I send it off to the colorist, and that's basically what I do.
But when you go into the computer program, you're not like doing dramatic changes, right? It's just just cleaning up little messy spots here and there that are
right.
left.
Yeah, I'm real traditional. I'm just basically like old school, pencil and pen. That's about it.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Now, you spoke about having perhaps book number 4 in your series at Fan Expo. Do you have any other upcoming projects that you can talk about?
Well, I definitely have a couple of story ideas. Nothing that's quite in the works right now. Like right now, my focus is just Starstorm and just getting that out there and just focusing on that right now. But I definitely have some other characters in the Starstorm universe that I'd like to work on eventually, but I have to see if Starstorm will actually go, and if people like it, then I can go ahead with these other characters. But yeah, focus is on Starstorm. I have another story idea that I was working on with my brother, without getting into too much detail about it. It's kind of about a group of witches that come to a small town in America, and they open a salon, and they basically give out free haircuts to, I shouldn't get into too much.
No, yeah, okay.
Yeah, but basically they open a salon and they cast a spell over the whole townspeople. They're trying to bring about their goddess. And and there's a group of punk rock kids who skateboard and buy comic books, and they're there to thwart them. So that's
interesting.
That's the idea of the comic.
Okay. One of the things I've been asking creators in my interviews is about the use of AI. And we know it's all in the news today, but I'm wondering specifically about the comic book creation. I want to get your take. Do you think that AI is helpful or harmful to comic book creation?
AI, it's a bit of I still am processing it. I don't think anything can be good. Artwork should come from people. It shouldn't be made by there should be some sort of, it shouldn't be so easy. I think it's a little bit of a cheat AI, perhaps. I don't know. It's just especially if you're images, and if the AI is taking from other people's work, then that's definitely not a good thing. People who've have a passion for this, and this is their meaning in life, is to create comic books. And if those jobs are lost because AI is just a cheaper, simpler way of creating these things, and some people can take the fast route, I don't know that that's the best thing. If it's just used as a tool to help, say I could use AI to clean up my pages, I wouldn't be resistant to that. I guess it depends on each scenario. I don't think it's the best thing, though. I think artwork is meant to be some effort put into it. It's not, it can't just, I don't know, computers can do too much a little bit, I think, and it's maybe not the best. So
Okay.
I'm not quite a fan, but I mean, I guess it's just like there's a space for it though as well. It's like maybe AI artwork is just like sort of like another artist that's out there, but yeah, I don't know that it's the best. It's not
Okay.
great. So yeah, that's
Okay. No, I appreciate that. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you if you have a website where you recommend people go to find out about your current and your future projects.
Mostly I'm just on Instagram right now. I don't have an official website yet. I should work on that, but I haven't. So my Instagram is just Drew Craig Art. I'm just jumping on Twitter right now to promote Starstorm and stuff. But yeah, find me on Instagram, Drew Craig Art, and that's the best way to follow my progression and of what I'm working on and all that stuff. So
sounds good. Well, Drew, those are all the questions I have for you. But I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
No, just go out and check out Starstorm. I think it's something that people will enjoy. If you like Invincible and you like the old school comics like X-Men and that sort of thing, and you're a guy maybe who was into Saturday morning cartoons growing up from the 80s and 90s, then it could be your thing. Yeah, it's gonna really take off. It's looking good. I'm really proud of what I'm doing, and it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun ride. I have a lot of really cool things planned, so I'm hoping people enjoy it. I hope people give it a shot, and that's about it.
Thanks to Drew for the chat. You can discover more about Drew on Instagram at Drew Craig Art. And thanks to you for listening to the True North Country Comics podcast. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to and like this podcast on Apple Podcasts, and please check out the TrueNorthCountryComics.com website. True North Country Comics is now on YouTube. Please like and subscribe to that video channel. You can follow along True North Country Comics on most social media sites. Please send your feedback to John at TrueNorthCountryComics.com. And if you want to help the site and the podcast, please consider supporting the effort by chipping in at ko-fi.com/True North Country Comics. Your patronage is greatly appreciated. Thanks for listening, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2023.